Hey guys, I'm John Setzler. Welcome back to Atlanta Grill Company. I recently bought this Alfa 1 wood-fired oven from Atlanta Grill Company. I've had this thing for about a week now. I've cooked on it several times and I wanted to do a video this week. I cooked the focaccia and I want to show you how that's done, so let's get started. We're going to get our focaccia started by mixing our dough, and I'm going to give you all these ingredients quantities in the video description, and I'm also going to give you a shortcut or an easier way to do this dough. I'm doing this a little more difficult way because I like the results a little better. So I've started out with my water here in a dough tub, and this water's at about 95 degrees Fahrenheit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to toss my yeast in there and I'm going to let that sit for about 2 minutes to rehydrate. I've let that rehydrate and I've let it swirl around a little bit also. The next thing I'm going to do is add a little sweetener, and in this project I like to use this stuff called Lyle's golden syrup. It's a pure cane syrup, cane sugar syrup, but you can use honey if you like, and I'm going to add some of that here. That's going to get about 10 grams. And I'm just going to stir that in to get that dissolved. And once I have that dissolved, I'm going to add my flour. And you can get in here with your hand if you like. I'm going to use this tool, which is kind of handy for this. And I'm just going to get that water and dough mixed together, or water and flour completely mixed. And what you want to do there is just get that together until you've got just a shaggy mass of dough where you've got about all the flour and the water mixed. And then the next thing I'm going to do is we're just going to put a lid on that and we're going to let that sit for about 30 minutes. Okay, I've let that dough rest in this tub for about 30 minutes. You can let this go an hour if you like. I just wanted to wet my hands there. And I'm going to scrape this dough out of the tub onto my cutting board or my work board here. And what I'm going to do to start with is just kind of flatten this out. And then I'm going to put about half of my salt on here. And then I'm going to fold this over itself and kind of pull it, fold it over itself again, and I'm going to flatten it back out and put the rest of my salt on there. The purpose of this is to let the dough get fully hydrated. Salt actually inhibits that process a little bit. This is a short, what's called an autolyse. So we're going to fold that back over, and this salt will distribute itself nicely throughout this dough through osmosis, just like you would brining a piece of meat. So I'm gonna flatten this dough, and what I'm gonna do here over the next couple hours is every 20 minutes I'm gonna come pull this dough out, stretch it, and fold it over itself just like I'm doing right here. And on this first one, I'm also going to add my olive oil. I'm going to add about 10 grams of olive oil to this, give or take. And I'm just going to work that in as I fold and stretch this dough. And then what I'm going to do is we're going to put that right back into the dough tub. And like I said, every 20 minutes I'm going to come back and we're going to do that process again. Okay, I've transferred my dough to a flat tub. It makes it a little bit easier to show here. I'm going to wet my hand once again, and what I'm going to do is grab this dough from the end. I'm going to stretch it and fold it over itself. I'm going to flip it around, stretch it again, fold it over itself. I'm going to turn it and do the same thing. And what we're doing here is we're just building a nice strong gluten network in this dough, and it takes a little time to do it. And you'll feel the dough get tighter as you go. And after you pull it and stretch it, what I like to do is just flatten it back out, which helps kind of keep the temperature in the dough even. And then I'm going to cover that back up. And like I said, I'll come back every 20 minutes for 2 hours. So I'm not going to show you all of these, but I'm going to show you the last one when we get to the 2-hour mark. Okay, we're down to our last section here, so I'm going to bring my dough out. This is a really wet dough. There's no doubt about that. It's designed that way. It's supposed to be wet. So what I want to try to do the best I can here, which is not going to be great, is kind of form this into a tighter ball. So, you know, you just kind of have to spin it, tuck it around from the edges, and it does not have to be anywhere near perfect. And what I want to do is I want to take that and put it back in my dough tub, just like that, seam side down, and then we're going to put the lid on that. And this guy's going to the refrigerator, and this needs to go to the refrigerator for at least 24 hours, and I recommend letting it go for 48. So it's about noon here on Wednesday. I'm planning to cook this late Friday afternoon. This needs to come out of the refrigerator 4 or 5 hours before you're ready to cook, because there's some more proofing that has to be done. So I will see you back Friday afternoon. Alright, we're now to cook day. Our dough has been doing its thing in the refrigerator for a couple of days, so I'm going to go ahead and take this out, and we're just going to let it sit out for about 30 minutes or so before we move on, and we're going to put some other things together. One of the things I like to put on my focaccia is garlic confit, and I also like to use some garlic infused olive oil in this process. So I've taken 12 cloves of garlic, and I have peeled those and cut the ends off, and I've got 2 cups of olive oil here that I'm going to use for 2 purposes. I am going to make the garlic confit, and then I'm going to have a good bit of garlic infused olive oil left over. So I'm going to turn that on low heat and let that oil come up to about 210 or 220 degrees. When the temperature of this olive oil gets up to about 220, I'm just going to turn the heat off, and I'm going to move it off the burner, and we're just going to let that sit. But while that's cooling, I'm going to take just a couple of tablespoons of that out and set it aside in a measuring cup where it can be cooling, because we're going to use it fairly shortly. Okay, I've just taken my dough out of the dough tub, and what I want to do is kind of flatten this out. And this is a sticky dough. I want to stretch it out as best I can here, and then what I'm going to do is kind of fold it into thirds where we've got kind of a log there like that, and I'm going to set this aside over here for just a minute, and then I'm going to use my Detroit pizza pan for this. This is a 10 by 14 pan, and I'm going to take some of that garlic infused olive oil that we set aside just a few minutes ago. This is room temperature now. It cools quickly when you put just a little bit of it in a measuring cup. I'm going to spread that out on the bottom of that pan, and then I'm going to take my dough and I'm just going to kind of flatten it out as best I can. We're not going to flatten it out far, just kind of press it down here. And the next thing I'm going to do is we're going to cover that with plastic wrap, and we're going to let it sit for 2 hours. I've let this guy rise for 2 more hours covered. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to peel back my plastic wrap. I should have popped a little bit of cooking spray on the top of that. But what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to wet my hands, and I want to flatten this guy out to where it fills the bottom of this pan. And also that oil that's in the pan, make sure that it gets up onto the side edges a little bit as you do this, and that will keep the focaccia from sticking in the pan. So this one's doing really well here. I've got a little more oil on this side than I have over here, so I'm going to shift some of that around a little bit and just keep working it until it's flattened out in the pan. And that looks really good right there. So I'm going to cover this back up, and this is going to sit and rise here for another hour. We've let this rest here for another hour, so we are ready to move forward with this. What I'm going to do is I've got my garlic confit here and a little bit of that olive oil. I'm going to pour a little bit of that garlic infused olive oil over the top of this focaccia, and I'm just going to kind of use the top of my hand to rub that over the top of this dough and get some of it everywhere. And then I'm just going to take my fingers and dimple the top of this dough. And then I'm going to take each of these cloves of garlic confit and just kind of stuff it in to the dough here. I've got 12 of these, so that's going to be plenty. And then once I have those in there, I've got some chopped fresh sage, thyme, and a little rosemary, just a little tiny bit of rosemary that I'm going to sprinkle on here to get a little bit of herb going there. And I just want to kind of pat that in to where those herbs get some of the oil on them, because we are going to put this in a hot oven. Our Alfa is down there running about 500 degrees, so let's take it to the oven. Okay, I've got the Alfa running here right at about 500 degrees, so we're going to slide this guy in here and we're going to let it cook. We're going to keep our eye on it, and we're probably going to turn it once it's been in there for a little while, so we'll come back at that point. Okay, we've been going here about 5.5 minutes, so that thing's looking real nice there. I'm going to spin it around and we'll let it keep cooking. Okay guys, we've been going here about 14 minutes or so, and I think I'm pretty happy with what that looks like. Man, that looks gorgeous. So I'm going to get this off of here. We're going to let it cool, and then we're going to check this out a little closer. While I've got this up here, while it's still warm, I'm going to take just a little bit more of that garlic infused extra virgin olive oil here, drizzle it across the top of this. So we'll let this cool. I can't wait to take this out of the pan. Guys, I have this thing mostly cooled down, and now we got some magic getting ready to happen. I'm gonna take my shoon and we're gonna cut right down through the middle of this, and I want you to just have a look at the crumb here. That is absolutely gorgeous. Guys, this is a beautiful focaccia. Let me just go ahead and cut a little piece off of here and get a taste of it. What I like to do is toast this. Man, that's amazing. So I'm gonna tear a piece of that off here. Man. Guys, this is absolutely banging. If you've never tried focaccia, this is a recipe that I put together last year when I was using quarantine time to up my baking game, and this focaccia is fantastic. It's the third or fourth time I've made this. Guys, give it a try. Let me know what you think. If you're not cooking on an Alfa, you know, you can cook this in the Kamado, or you can cook it in the regular oven. You just want to cook somewhere 450 to 500 degrees. So give it a try. Let me know what you think. Until next time, this is John Setzler with Atlanta Grill Company.